Weird science
is the revolution.
Redcoat number 3. Written by Jeff Johns, art by Brian Hitch, Andrew Curry, and Brian Hitch on inks, Brad Anderson on colors, and Rob Lay on letters. They do have a previously, and I'll just read it. The year is 1892. Simon Pure and a 13-year-old Albert Einstein are attacked by the same hooded colt that gave Simon his immortality in 1776. I wish they would have put unknowingly gave it or unwittingly, because they did not want to give it to him. A wound caused by mystical acts forces Simon to seek answers from his frenemy, Benedict Arnold, who reveals the wound will kill him in 3 days, this time for good. And we do get an explanation of what is going on with this axe, and it's pretty darn cool.
Yeah.
This is actually George Washington's axe that, if you believe the folk tale, he ended up chopping down the cherry tree. His dad asked him, and he said, "I cannot tell a lie, I did it." We end up where Benedict Arnold, who has a real hard-on for George Washington, and there'd be reasons that it makes sense, says, yeah, that's bullcrap. And all these people eat it up, and actually proclaims that eventually people will learn the real truth about George Washington and seemingly will celebrate the real hero, Benedict Arnold. This will never happen. He can say all he wants. He could be immortal. He could try this every step of the way. It's just not happening. But he does reveal that the real story, and even Simon, he knows, and a lot of this is cool. What I like in this, it plays a bit like, and it has already, kind of like that Star Wars feel of a lived-in universe, that things have already happened. So you get mention of, oh man, you know what happened to George Washington, right? And Simon's like, I was there. Like, it's a really cool connection between those two, the history, all this kind of hidden conspiracy stuff, but it's all there. Things have happened. And when you do this, and you do it right, which I think Jeff Johns does, you can almost feel like, all right, I could see us having a 3-issue mini about George Washington, or I could see us having a thing about John Adams and Thomas Jefferson. Like, there's some cool things, even where you mentioned where Simon says at one point he hung out with Johnny Appleseed and they got real drunk together. And in this issue, while Simon does not necessarily do any magic himself, that actually is Albert Einstein, but he feels so much like Constantine.
Yes.
He does feel, each issue feels more and more, and I do like that. But the big play of the axe, and it's funny too, because while that's going on, you do have Albert, who does kind of, the only thing I'll say with the art is Albert does change dramatically. Like, at one point he's holding the axe and he looks like a 25-year-old. Then the next page he's back to just being a little kid again. But if I'm Benedict Arnold or even Simon, he's like waving the axe every sort of way. I'm like, watch it, buddy. Like, he's all over the place. But the real tale is, oh, no, that was made up. And they end up going with the whole play of the fairy tale, of the folklore that was going in. And they're throwing in legitimate people. They're throwing in the authors, all of that going on. And says the real story was that George Washington did, and it was giving an axe to a kid. And now you're a man, here's your axe. And he's going around playing around with his axe. And he ends up chopping down the cherry tree, blames it on the kid next door. And then you end up where they end up at the parents, the adults next door. They get taken away forever. And it's kind of a way for George Washington's dad to take over their farm as well. It's more of a dark tale to then say, basically, George Washington then went crazy with this axe. And when you do see him, he is kind of scalping a redcoat. And you do end up, as he opens up or his, shirt and stuff open up, he has this insignia, the insignia of this Illuminati group on his chest as well. So you didn't know, but George Washington was inked at one point. So you have that.
He was tatted up.
He's tatted up. He looks pretty cool, right? And it does, the way it looks at first, it does kind of look like a tribal type tattoo. But
yes,
it's the idea that this axe them, because of who they are and who George Washington was, it ended up being tainted to become the axe of lies. Instead of I can never tell a lie, he actually had this axe that was the axe of lies. And that's a pretty cool deal. You named something like that, and it seems really, really neat. And says it can cut through even the greatest truth. So it's this crazy deal. But the big play, though, is if you get cut by this axe, you die within 3 days, no matter what. It doesn't matter if you're just nicked with it. And that's where, again, now Benedict has it. And I think he's like, don't test fate here. I mean, you could just get pricked by it. But he ends up where then Simon, it sets up 3 days, fully 3 days now. And it mentions that is how long it took the roots of the cherry tree to die. It's all folklore mixed in, but it's that magic type deal that is really cool, right?
Yes.
I mean, I thought that was really, really neat. Even talking about this is how the John Adams and Thomas Jefferson both were cut by the axe and they died 3 days later, which happened to be the 4th of July, which is true. So you have all that sort of thing going on. But they say even, Adams and Jefferson's killer was never caught. And this was funny because when he says it, Simon looks at him like, really? I always thought that was you. You were the one, right? And he's like, whoa, don't look at me. It's funny. He's like, don't look at me. That I wasn't involved in that. But he's such, I don't know. The idea, too, of Benedict Arnold being Benedict Arnold and the whole play of him kind of being a bad guy, a frenemy. I don't hate him in this issue. I did before. He was kind of a jerk last year. I think he's kind of fun here and acting like an immortal would, that a lot of these things are kind of funny. They end up to him as it's not really that much of a concern because I'm living forever and I can kind of do it. But he still hates George Washington. That is the best of it. He's so triggered by George Washington. Oh my God, he hates him so much. So then, while this is going on, you do have one of the funniest things too, is Albert will say anything and Benedict Arnold hates
shut
him.
Up.
Yeah, he's like, I can't understand. Your accent is so annoying. That is such a clever thing to do this quick in an idea that it is. We said it. Everybody said it last issue. And when you end up putting it in the issue for Benedict, it makes it kind of funny. And you kind of look past it, and it actually does a really good job, right? I
really wanted Benedict Arnold to come in with a magical thing. Here you go. For the next 2 months, you can speak English.
The non-accent branch or something, because they're there in this deal, and you have J.P. Morgan's daughter come in, and she's like, oh, what's going on? She does seem to have a thing for Simon. I'll tell you, Simon is a lot better looking than Benedict Arnold. But she's like, oh, is he okay? What's going on? And Benedict goes, hey, he's a drunk. We got to get going. And I like to, at this point, you do see in the art, Brian Hitch's art is really good. The scene's still going. Einstein is already looking to see where there's a trap door. He's already wondering what is going on with this fireplace and the idea of everything that Benedict Arnold said, almost like he was giving riddles. And he's trying to figure something out as everything's going around him. It's funny because then you do have Benedict Arnold leave. And right away, Einstein, he's still looking, and he's like, hey, I think there's something here. Well, Simon's like, I need a drink. I mean, I need something. And please, don't make it water. I need something hard here. And Einstein's like, I think that there's something that he's
behind
hiding from us. Yeah, I think there's something. And he starts okay, he said, and it's, we are going into the lion's mouth, as he said, Ja. And Simon's like, I don't know what the hell you're saying. What are you talking about? And he does end up, boom, and you have a trapdoor, which is really, really cool. And it's the idea of these sort of things with the Illuminati, with all these Book of Secrets type of deals. It's so cool. And when you go into it, it's crazy.
It's amazing. It looks like the Just League Dark headquarters from Rebirth. It was so cool.
You have T-Rexes. You have stuffed people.
You got a Statue of Liberty
crazy
in there.
Thing, a Statue of Liberty, right? You have all these things. One of the things you end up looks like Mjolnir. I mean, legit. And you end up having, I love, just a glass case with a top hat in it. But who knows? And these are the cool things of, oh man, I wonder what that does. I wonder what that does. You have old flags. You have a bunch of books. You have one book that's set out specifically. And and I like Einstein say, he was hiding something. And then they go and check out this book. And Einstein kind of right away says, okay, it's not in German, it's not in English. I'll have to see what's going on.
I recognize it from something, but I can't tell.
Yeah, and you have Simon say, please find something about the axe. It has to be in there. Suddenly, I thought Einstein read something, but suddenly the side of this mansion blows up in this blue glowing glow. It's the hooded guys. They're in there. This whole, crew that were chasing them before and stabbed them. They have arrived in this and just
they got a wand.
Yeah, and it's funny, they ended up figuring out, Einstein figures out a way to get through, the fireplace and go, these guys just blow a hole in the side of the wall of the thing and go in. And they're like, oh my God, but Einstein says, we got to get the book. Simon goes and grabs that. I like at one point, all you have is, I'd say, I have the axe. And they're like, get the book. They get the book. And to get out, it's so cool because at one point they even say hey, they got a big bag of seeds. Like, what would they have? It's actually the seeds from Johnny Appleseed. And when they throw them down, they immediately grow into trees instantly. It's so cool.
Yeah, it's a swamp thing. There's all the trees coming in.
It's so cool. It even feels very Harry Potter. It's so cool. And these trees, because they threw so much, and they are apple trees. There's a bunch of
They're just going everywhere through all the doors and windows.
Einstein isn't grabbing an apple and eating it or something like that. But yeah, it's all out.
They should be skating down the tree trunks.
Exactly. It'd be like Tarzan. They end up where they do get out because of that. And I do like they're running. And they get like a block away. They end up kind of commandeering a distillery delivery horse and buggy carriage type deal. And I love where Einstein goes, I don't hear them. And you end up, Simon's like, listen, they found us. They went from Boston to New York City. Like, they're going to find us. We got to get the hell out of here. They're going to chase us. We're not away from them now. And these guys do show up and they're shooting guns. They end up where it is kind of a cool play and would be really cool cinematically because, every movie or TV show, you'll have a car chase. But this being on the horse and carriage is so...
It is so cool.
Yeah, so you have that. And I was worried because they do have all the booze and stuff. So I thought it was going to blow up even as they're getting shot.
Oh, did Donkey Kong to just start throwing the barrels at them.
Exactly. And then they end up where it... And then I thought maybe
Albert,
the big play would be that the booze going off, because it is leaking out that they were just going to light a match and it was going to, go down the road and blow them up. But it kind of is more than that because Simon says, read the book, see what's going on. Do you have anything? But it seems as if Simon has to be the one to do the magic. You end up having Albert say, I get it. This is backwards Latin. Simon's probably like, really? And even at one point, it's funny because
I can't speak Latin.
Albert says, what did you do all these years? You're immortal. Like, didn't you use it for learning? He's like, yeah, not really.
I drank and I ate.
I drank and I ate and I womanized is basically what he did. And so Albert thinks like the greatest thing would be to be immortal because he could learn so much, but that's not Simon's thing. We already know it. He starts saying this crazy spell. And that's where you do have Albert say, this is a spell book. This is actually a magic book.
It can unlock your potential.
Yeah. And starts yelling to Simon, like, say this after me. He says it wrong the first time. And he's like, calm down.
No.
Say it like this. And he's like, he does it. The problem is it blows everything up, including them. I mean, they go flying. Everything is blowing up its own.
I like where Simon includes the horses were not harmed, by the way.
Yeah, that's pretty funny. And the best thing is the horses weren't harmed, but what they did was they took large craps where they say a guy came in and scooped up, that's the shat, and they come in and grab that and then end up growing big vegetables down the line. I'm like, that's pretty funny. That's pretty crazy. But in that, they're passed out. They end up getting knocked out and they capture Simon. Simon gets captured and he is there on, the slab that we saw earlier. Not quite what he was on, but what Benjamin Franklin was on when they were going to do the original ritual. And I'm assuming they're going to try to, take the magic thing. I don't know.
Transfer it. I don't know. Maybe transfer the curse or whatever to somebody else.
Yeah, maybe it'll be somebody else that's big of the time that we'll see and whatnot. But
it's Benedict Arnold. Dun, dun, dun.
Because at the end, you do have like a Benedict Arnold page that you get some info, which is kind of neat. But you end up where they say, oh, it's finally your time, old boy. You're going to help us burn America to the ground. And then they laugh. Now, one of the things that was funny, and it did remind me of the Django, the Quentin Tarantino, when they were actually making the masks when they were going to do, and it was...
I can't see crap through this thing.
Yeah, when they were doing that. When they blow up into the mansion of Benedict Arnold's, the one guy is like, Jesus Christ, and why did you do that? The guy's like, hey, I don't know how to use this thing because he has a magic wand.
I just waved the wand. That's all I
waved it. All I did was wave it. I got splinters. This thing hurts. It was pretty funny. It reminded me so much of that scene.
Yes.
And Django, it made me giggle. Overall, again, I think I know that people have their favorites. I think this is, again, it's at least equal with the Rook Exodus. It's a different kind of book. It has a lot of humor. But in this, there's a lot of cool things. You got magic stuff. You got the time travel of being immortal. You have, Albert Einstein making fun of his accent, him going. And really in this book, once you make fun of the accent, I don't know, I kind of got used to the whole play. And when he did it, it just kind of made me laugh because I know that even Simon at one point says, I don't know what you're talking. I can't understand your accent. But Albert's pretty good. And, he figured out a bunch of things, which is cool because it's not like Albert Einstein showed up with Batman And we're like, oh, Batman shouldn't have. No, Simon is kind of a doofus. Like, he needs Albert there.
I was going to say, he's lucky he's got Albert.
Yeah,
because otherwise he'd be dead by now.
Oh, he'd be dead. And all of this ended up being the thing. Remember that Albert's sister had these premonitions, and Albert's there to save the world because he said that he was told by his sister in these premonitions that Simon would do that. So he's got that desperation going as well, and it's really cool. Really, really cool. And if you have a book and you have even a young Albert Einstein and he says, oh, I can read this now because it's backwards Latin, you're not going to question it because it's Albert Einstein. You're like, the guy's smart. So he would figure that out. I think it's a genius move to have that with that because you're not going to question any other thing. You'd be like, why would they know that or whatnot? But he's very smart. So I do like it. I would say that issue number 4, if it is a comic book day, would be cool to come out July 4th. That would be a really neat play. And no, maybe July 3rd. We'll get it right before my birthday, actually, the day before.
Right,
but that'd be a really cool thing to have this book come out on July 4th, just for a little bit of a wink. But what would you give it?
I'm going to give this a 9 out of 10. I'm
really giving it that too.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it. Just so much of it just was me just being like, oh, that's so cool. That's so interesting. The artwork's fantastic. I just love where they go into the secret entrance and it's just that room. And I'm like, you know what? I just want this book now. I just want a book where it's just them operating out of that freaking
that's
base.
Their bat cave there.
Yeah, exactly. And they just go around doing all this like conspiracy things with America. It's just like, that would be so cool.
What you showed was Benedict Arnold. He's been collecting things. Simon just kind of bumbles through and doesn't have. Benedict Arnold is, getting money. He's learning that, and he's got a lot of magic stuff in that. That was all his. So that's pretty crazy, but yeah. And it is nice. There's a lot of times where a book will start out and you're like, oh my God, that's pretty cool. But then later it kind of keeps going down. It's not this is getting better each issue. So
yeah, I know. That's
like
my one biggest compliment to this series and this entire universe. Just every issue we keep saying, hey, this is our new favorite series. No, this is our new. It just keeps getting better, and I'm just so excited.
So yeah, I'm gonna give it a 9.3.
You know what? I'm gonna go a 9.5. I'm gonna raise.
I'll give you a 9.6 now. I'll stick with 9.3. But it's so good, and the art's really great. So if you haven't been checking this out, I definitely recommend that you do. I think it's really good.
Yes, it's really good.
Hey, all you weirdos! If you like comic book shows, podcasts, videos, please check the description of this video, where you can see links to all of our podcast shows, websites, all of that. And if you want to help us out for everything that we do, you can click on that Patreon link in the upper left-hand corner and check out our Patreon, where you can go right now and get a 7-day free trial to see all the stuff that we do, shows that are Marvel, DC, indie, manga, and even more. So check all that out, and I'll talk to you all later.
Weird science
is the revolution.